Mr. Prime Minister, we already have some news here in Israel that during Palm Sunday, yesterday, here in Jerusalem at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Latin Patriarch, the Catholic Archbishop, was denied the ability to say Mass on Palm Sunday. What really happened?
Well, what happened was that the Iranians have been firing missiles at the old city of Jerusalem, where you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest places for Islam, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the holiest places for Christianity, and the Western Wall, which is the holiest place for Judaism. And the fragments nearly hit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So as a result, the Israeli security authorities said, okay, let's take out the worshippers right now because they'd be hurt. There's no protection there. And that was a general instruction that applied to the Jewish places, to the Muslim places, and to the Christian places. And that was the reason that a police officer on duty said, oh, okay, I'm applying it also to the Patriarch. Now, look, I think that wasn't, I can understand the concern for his safety, and that was the only concern. There was no malice here, no bad intention, unlike the press reports. But nevertheless, I said, despite this concern, I gave an instruction immediately, the minute I heard about it. No, he should be free, the Patriarch, to come with his party and perform services as he wishes. There's a risk there, and we're trying to minimize it. So I'm trying to get through the holiday season to try to get some worshipers to be able to worship in these sites, but in limited numbers, Jewish places as well, limit the numbers so that if we have an attack, as few as possible people would be hurt. So it really is just the opposite. I mean, our goal is to protect Christians. Our goal is to protect worshipers of every faith. And our policy has been absolutely pro-Christian, the complete opposite of the slander that is being foisted at us. You look at the Middle East and you see in every country the Christians are shrinking. Their number is shrinking. Right. They're oppressed. They're in very bad shape. Many of them leave. The only place where the Christian population has grown and the Christian community thrives, they serve, a Christian judge serves on the Supreme Court. They're in our Knesset, in our parliament. They're in the champions of our industry. They lead in indicators of, of higher education. They lead. That's because of the policy. And the policy is frankly the one that I am leading because of our general policy towards interfaith freedom, but also our affinity with Christianity.
I'm surprised the world is not condemning Iran for targeting the holy sites of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. It's getting no press, and they didn't do it in the 12-day war to the same degree.
No, they didn't do it at all in the 12-day war. They're doing it now, and they're targeting these, the old city where you have the three most sacred sites of the three monotheistic faiths, and they're doing it with impunity. So I think we're taking the protective measures, but the absurd thing is that we're being accused for protecting Christians, and this fallacy, this lie, this vilification that Israel is against Christians, when Israel is the only country in the Middle East and one of the few countries in the world that stands up for Christians, whether they're oppressed in Nigeria or they're oppressed in Syria or they're oppressed anywhere else in the Middle East. We protect them because that's the way we should treat all human beings, but especially our Christian friends.
We're into this war just over a month now. You're the war prime minister. And I think I'd like to understand what you feel you've achieved, Israel and the United States working together so far in this war. And when do you think we might see light at the end of the tunnel, mission accomplished?
Look, if you remember what happened before the war, Iran was the great bully of the Middle East and the world. It was the prime sponsor of state terrorism across many continents, including in the Western Hemisphere, including, by the way, with Venezuela and with others. And they killed and maimed more Americans than any other force in recent decades. Thousands and thousands killed and maimed in Afghanistan by Iranian IEDs. They bombed your embassies. They tried to kill President Trump twice. They're still trying to kill him. Yeah. Most importantly is they chant death to America. They also say death to Israel, but they say America is the great Satan. They're religious zealots, and they have to wipe out Western culture led by America. And Israel is considered the little Satan because we're just standing in their way of conquering the Middle East, which is their preliminary step of getting to America and hitting America. So this is a regime that has been targeting America for 47 years. It's their raison d'etre, it's their reason for being. They're completely, ideological fanatics who are not necessarily responsive to, the careful calculation of cost and benefit. So they do things that other countries don't do. You have countries that are adversarial to you, but I don't hear North Korea chanting death to America. I don't hear China chanting North Korea. I don't hear Russia. These are all countries which are adversarial to you, but they're not seized by this fanaticism. Right. But Iran is. Right. So Iran wants to develop nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to every American city. And this is what this is about, preventing them from having this intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear weapons to tip them, which could threaten the life of every American. That's why President Trump chose to act to prevent them from doing this.
And I think you got some vindication recently with the attack on the almost striking of Diego Garcia, 2,500 miles from Iran. Nobody thought they had a missile that could hit or penetrate that distance. It did. Now, it wasn't an intercontinental ballistic missile, but it was pretty close.
It's getting there.
Yeah, it's getting there.
It's getting there. It's 4,000 kilometers. And I've argued, for quite some time for my European colleagues, who have shown remarkable weakness. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. Remarkable weakness in the face of a regime that says America is the great Satan, Israel is the small Satan,
right,
and Europe is sort of the middle-sized Satan in between, a civilization that has to be crushed too. I said they're developing missiles that will cover Europe. Well, now, with firing that long-range missile into Diego Garcia, they've got practically all of Europe under their fire.
Right.
And the question is, will the West wake up? And because it's not obvious. Churchill called it the slumber of democracies. He said democracies go to sleep and they can only wake up with a jarring gong of danger. It sort of wakes them up. Well, it may not wake them up because Iran has been pursuing nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to Washington, to New York, to Los Angeles and everything in between, and to London, Paris, and Berlin. And nobody woke up. And I've tried to say that to them. Well, I hope they're waking up now. But I'll tell you one man who woke up. He didn't need waking up. It's Donald Trump.
Yep.
He said 40 years ago, he said Iran is the great danger. When they took over hostages at the American embassy, he said this regime has to be confronted. He's talked to me about the need to prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons. He was very clear on that. He walked out of the disastrous Iran deal that paved Iran's way with gold towards a nuclear arsenal. If that deal had been consummated and it hadn't walked out, they'd already have nuclear weapons with international approval.
Just before this war began, IAEA reported that Iran was within weeks of getting the nuclear weapons-grade nuclear plutonium necessary for a bomb. So there was an imminent threat. And now they say they still have 60% weapons grade. It's and they're getting closer. You feel this is very important that we find out where that is and either destroy it or make sure that it's moved. What is the latest status on the plutonium?
Well, I think that's the focus. Having degraded Iran's missile capability, their missile-making capability, because we destroyed their factories to produce these horrible weapons, also destroyed a lot of their centrifuges, the supply line to make enriched uranium. They still have a stock of enriched uranium, and that's the focus of President Trump's demand. He says, take it out. Either give it to me, possibly to the IAEA, possibly to others, but take it out of Iran. And that's the focus right now of much of what this negotiation will be.
There is talk within Iran, or certainly press reports, they're talking about accelerating, if they have the plutonium, to try to get a bomb quickly. Do you think that's possible?
I think they're going to have a hard time because of the previous operation, the 12-day war, which we call Rising Lion, and now the current effort, which you call Epic Fury and we call Roaring Lion. As a result of this American-Israeli cooperation, we remember that we destroyed their top nuclear scientists. We took them out, including, by the way, 12 in the 12-day war, and now 4 additional ones. So now the know-how which people think they have, or it's obvious they have it and so on, not so easy. They don't have that, and they have other problems. We set them back. But I think the important thing is to ask, what happens? Can the world sit back, as the world was doing, sitting back and saying, all right, we have this fanatic regime in Iran, which murders its own people by the tens of thousands, murders and wounds these people without any compunction.
Yes.
And calling death to America, choking the energy pipeline of the world, and out to destroy you and us. Do you want to just sit there and say, oh no, it's okay, let's not do it, because we may have a momentary rise in the price of oil? Well, what do you think will happen when they have these nuclear weapons? Look at what they're doing. They're bombing every country in sight, including a European country, Cyprus, through their proxy, Hezbollah. So they're doing everything that without nuclear weapons. Now think what would happen. What kind of world we'll have if they had nuclear weapons. And that's what President Trump, with my support and our partnership, have set out to prevent.
President Trump, you know as well as I do, he gets a laser focus when he sees a problem.
He does indeed.
And nothing will stop him from fixing that problem. And the problem I think he's really focused on now is what you just mentioned, the energy pipeline, the Strait of Hormuz. And he's very concerned about keeping that open. For the moment, the Iranians seem to have that as a choke point. How do you think you and the United States can open that strait so that Iran can no longer choke the energy? I heard there's about 1,000 ships or close to it waiting to go through either side of the waterway. How do we open it up?
I think there are military solutions to that the United States is leading, and I won't get into that. But I think post-war, there are things that I hear from the Arab countries and from in the United States as well. And I think these are interesting ideas to divert all the energy pipelines, oil and gas, from the Gulf, where the Iranians have a geographic choke point, westward to across Saudi Arabia, to the to the Red Sea, and up there to the Mediterranean ports, our ports in Israel, and therefore you just get around the geographic choke point. So you have an immediate problem of opening the Gulf, but a long-term interest to get around the geography and allow basically free flow of oil and gas.
It's interesting looking at the Iranian strategy here, because in the 12-day war, they just focused an attack on Israel. In this particular war and engagement, they're probably 70% of their attacks are in the Gulf region. Most of them are hitting UAE. What is their strategy in attacking the Gulf states? And maybe that will put them in more likely to be open to this pipeline.
Well, what they're doing, Iran is attacking the Gulf states to put pressure on America to stop the attacks on them and give them the freedom to develop their nuclear weapons. That's basically what they want. But I think it's boomerang, because many of the Gulf states, in fact, say, oh, we shouldn't succumb to this blackmail, because we'll be in a much worse place when they develop nuclear weapons and the other weapons that they want, because that'll be the end of the Gulf states. It'll be the end of many, many states. So they are actually encouraging, many of them are encouraging the United States to accelerate its action against Iran in order to prevent them from having these choke points.
We are hearing at Newsmax that part of that acceleration could be the use of American ground troops going into some of the islands near the Strait of Hormuz, the coastal areas, and maybe even Karg Island, which controls 90% of oil that comes out of Iran. Do you see that President Trump would order troops into that area? And how successful do you think such a move could be?
I leave that to him, and I'm certainly not going to get into this tactical discussion, which is important. But I think President Trump has shown amazing leadership, amazing fortitude. He's bold, but he's also he thinks things a lot more carefully than people think. But he's bold.
You guys have been hyper-focused on the military infrastructure with the Americans, U.S. forces. You've wiped out the Air Force, the Navy. You just hit some steel plants. What was the reason for that? Is that a new change of direction for Israel in this war?
The steel plants are controlled by the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, who are basically the terror apparatus that controls Iran. They take the revenue there. They use it both for their, for their terror tyranny, but also to produce missiles, to produce weapons. So when you knock out their steel capacity, we knocked out about 70% of Iran's steel capacity, you're really attacking the war machine of the Revolutionary Guards. It's like taking factories out of the SS. If you want to, people don't know history, but there was a Nazi regime, and the Nazi regime had the army, the Wehrmacht, but it also had the lead troops, and that's the SS, the stormtroopers. The stormtroopers of this regime are called the Revolutionary Guards and the Basij. That's really what they do. They terrorize their own people. So when we hit that steel plant, we're hitting a major element of the terror tyranny's economy. And obviously, it hurts them. And by the way, there's a lot of dissension there. They're talking now among themselves. They're criticizing each other publicly. Have you seen that? And that's quite amazing.
I'd like to get two metrics from you on this war. One is like it's a percentage. If 100% is the war is over, we succeed in stopping the nuclear program and stopping Iran. Where are we on that 100? Are we 70, 80% towards the end of the war? And how many weeks do you think it would be to accomplish that 100% mark?
I don't put a schedule on it. I think we've achieved a lot of things, We really degraded this regime, really hit them very hard, hit the IRGC, killed thousands of these stormtroopers, killed their leaders who were spouting this death to America doctrine, really knocked out a good chunk of their, not a good chunk, close to finishing their arms industry. Just the whole industrial base, wiping out all, just plants, entire plants, and of the nuclear program itself. So it's definitely beyond the halfway point. But I don't want to put a schedule on it.
But is it a problem that you think
is beyond halfway in terms of missions, not necessarily in terms of time? I don't want to get into schedules.
Right. But do you think it's going to be, let's say, they say there's two types of problems, right? For health, you have acute and chronic. Do you think this could be a chronic where we're going to have to police the Iranians for years to come so that they don't redevelop their military infrastructure?
I think it's really up to the Iranian people eventually to rise and take down this thing. If it hasn't happened yet, it may happen later. It may happen after the war is over. You saw the uprisings that you had there.
Are you seeing some signs of uprising?
Well, we're seeing that the people would like to throw them out. I mean, they hate them. 80% of the Iranians want to throw out this regime.
Yeah. I hear they cheer your name outside their apartment windows at night.
Yeah, I think you can't fault them, and I don't, having faced machine guns against unarmed protesters who are saying we want freedom. We just want to be able to live a free life. So, but eventually I think this regime will collapse internally. But at the moment, right now, what we're doing is just degrading their military capacity, degrading their missile capacity, degrading their nuclear capacity, and also weakening them from the inside. I think that Iran is coming out of this a lot weaker, and we're coming out of this a lot stronger. And if, in fact, if the Arab countries, were just silently bowing their heads to Iran, quite a big change is happening there, because a lot of them are saying, enough is enough. Some of them still are, but some of them are encouraging the American action, saying this is important for the peace of the world. And people say, well, this is escalation. No, it's not. It's prevention. Because if Iran were allowed to just continue on the path of building nuclear weapons, building the missiles to deliver them to every American city, you're going to face not only a horrible blackmail, you're going to, on the energy front, and if you think you have trouble now, wait till you see what will happen then. You're going to face an existential danger to Americans. Now, whether or not they can't realize that, right? People can't see that. But the test of leadership is to identify danger in time and to act against it in time. In the 1930s, people didn't see the danger of Hitlerism. They said, no, it's not our problem. Or it's a Jewish problem or something like that. They didn't see that Hitlerism was out to get control of the world. Maybe they don't see it now. I think a good many do.
Mr. Prime Minister, Newsmax reaches about 50 million people regularly through our TV channels, social media, other platforms. The polls show in America that there isn't majority support for the military engagement, although 60% they say of the public says finish the job. What would you tell the American people is the single most important reason why we have to finish the job and support President Trump in this engagement?
Because you can't let a regime that is fanatic, composed of fanatic zealots who want to destroy America to have their way. You have to weaken them as strongly as you can to prevent them from having intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear weapons that could destroy your cities and destroy America. That's a pretty good reason to act. Now, whether or not people realize it, if you work by the polls, don't lead. I mean, I'm not saying politicians ignore polls, everybody looks at them. But if this is the only thing that decides your course of action, you're not a leader, you're a follower. You have to tell the public the truth. You have to tell them there's a great danger for the future of America, the future of our free societies by these mad mullahs who are there. You have to stop them. You have to stop them by applying military pressure. If you can get then a diplomatic arrangement that you can monitor and inspect, it's fine. I have no problem with that. But if you can't, then do what you have to do to make sure that Iran doesn't have the capacity to destroy you or blackmail you.
Well, I want you to know that I support and we greatly appreciate what the state of Israel has done because we believe you're fighting for freedom for all of us, not just Israelis. And America will stand by you, and I'm sure President Trump will do that, no doubt.
Well, he's been an extraordinarily effective leader and bold in basically doing the right thing, not only for America, but I think for future generations. He's a tremendous friend of Israel because he also understands that Israel, while we're fighting to defend ourselves, we understand also that we're fighting against these barbarians, these people who shoot their people by the thousands, who oppress women, who oppress minorities, who bomb everything in sight, every Arab country. I mean, there's a big change. I'll tell you what the big change is, Chris. I used to say this, for decades. I said, just as Donald Trump spoke for decades about the danger of Iran, but nobody listened, and certainly nobody understood. Today, everybody understands. Whether they act on it is a different matter. But the first thing is they understand that this is a horrible regime that has to be curbed and has to be prevented from exercising its malicious intent. And I think we're very lucky to have the president lead this. And I think Israel is very lucky to have such a close partnership with America. A lot of Americans understand that Israel is the good guy. The good guys congregate with the good guys. The bad guys congregate with the bad guys. Look at supporting Iran. I don't want to even mention, who's doing that. By the way, the Palestinians are supporting Iran, okay? Supporting Iran. Israel is with the good guys congregate with the good guys, the bad guys congregate with the bad guys, and we have to fight for the middle. But the middle has to understand, the middle, I'm talking about Europe, which has shown remarkable weakness, ostrich-like, burying their head in the sand, to understand that America and Israel, and now Gulf states, are saying this is a battle not only for ourselves, it's a battle for a free, moderate, forward-looking societies against these medieval fanatics who want to bring us back to the Dark Ages. That's what we're fighting. And to have in America people say, oh no, Israel is our enemy. It's not your enemy, it's your best friend. It's your only fighting ally, fighting our common enemies, willing to stand up for for what we and Americans believe. And we're doing that unabashedly. I have to say that, you're saying there's nothing you can do against these conspiracy theories and this mad stuff that is sweeping the edges of the American polity. But I think there is something to do. First of all, to do the right thing, and second, to say it like we're doing it here. And I appreciate the opportunity you've given me to speak forthrightly and truthfully.
Well, we appreciate your time today on Newsmax, and we will continue reporting the news and telling the American public the truth they need to know.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.